Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, to all my people in the Philippines, magandang umaga, magandang hapon, maraming salamat po, King Magat Kaibigan, checking out my video. Maayong buntag, maayong hapon, anybody who speaks Cebuano, hello, to anybody who speaks Dutch, thank you for coming and taking a look at my video, appreciate it very much. So I picked a game from the 2018 Grand Chess Tour that they played in Leuven. It was a guess your move type of situation. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, your next move. That's what they kind of called the Grand Chess Tour in 2018. So yeah, I went ahead and went a little bit back in time. Went ahead and got a Wesley versus Anish Giri game. So you know, if you guys are ready, yeah, let's take a look, see if we have it again. Bam. I'm gonna have to wing the opening because I didn't put what the opening was. So let me see if I can remember it. So we got knight to f3. So it was a ready. So it starts off as a ready. I'll see if I can find out what it transposes to. We got d5, b3, knight to f6, bishop to b2. Let me just go over real quick. Okay, so it says ready opening Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack. That's what it's showing me it is. So that is that. It kind of reminds you of, if you guys ever watched like Hikaru Nakamura on chess.com, it kind of reminds you of the way he might play sometimes. He'll do like the double, you know, Phi and Kettle type situation. So we have a g6, we got c4, pawn takes c4, pawn takes c4. We got bishop to g7. You know, we're not really worried about, you know, the bishop taking here because it'll just open up, you know, if we had something like this. You know, taking here, and then we can extend f5. We can always castle queenside as black, so it's not a bad deal to have double pawns. So like I said, we did have bishop to g7. We have g3, so we have the full, you know, pretty much double Phi and Kettle. The Hikaru variation, no, I'm playing. That's not a real thing. I'm just saying. You know, a Hikaru situation with it. We got castles by black. We got bishop to g2. We got c5. We have castles by white. You got knight to c6, and we got knight to e5. For whatever reason, you know, white is wanting to try to trade off this this knight for, you know, this knight. I don't know. Maybe it possibly makes this week something like queen to b3 might come, and you have just kind of like the bishop and the queen bearing down on the square. Sounds like it might be the idea. And so we see knight to a5. Man, can't get my words out. Knight to a5. So we have queen to c2. And then we have knight to d7. So let me see here. So what we saw in the game was actually knight takes d7. And we saw bishop takes d7, which was the novelty of the game. But if I back up, there was another variation that was pretty good. This is an opportunity I wanted you guys to stop the video. So if we come here after knight to d7, there was another move that the computer suggested that was a little bit stronger than knight takes d7, and it was actually knight to g4. And I'm wondering, if you are black, you know, what would you personally play here? If you want to take a minute just to kind of, you know, stop real quick. I'm just kind of curious. It's not like a right or wrong thing. I'm just kind of curious, you know, what people are thinking in this position as black. What they notice and what they would like to play as black here. So go ahead and stop it real quick and see what you would play. All right, cool. So I'm curious because I feel like some people might be noticing that the queen is holding this this pawn, and there seems like there's a way to deflect it away. So if you kind of had in your mind, and this is something I want you to be careful about, like in the future. If you had in your mind that bishop takes b2, it deflects the queen over to take on b2, and then you can snap a pawn with knight takes c4. Unfortunately, this actually gets you mated in one. And so knight to h6 is actually checkmated in one. And the major problem, the thing I want you guys to think about is the fact that whenever you do Phi and Kettle with bishop in front of your king, you have to be very, very careful of giving that particular piece up because you can create a very weak color complex around your king. So for, you know, white, for example, you know, you really kind of want to hold on to this light square bishop, because if not, you know, you're going to have a lot of holes around your king. And so that's kind of like what, you know, it is, you know, it's bad here in that position. So it might, like I said, it might have seemed like, you know, you could have just won a pawn, and that's what it seemed like to me at first. And then I was like, wow, that's checkmate. So that's nasty. So that wasn't something I was played in the game, but I just thought that was interesting when I was kind of going through the variations, that it kind of seems like you can just win a pawn here, but you'd be horribly mistaken. Anyway, like I said, we did have bishop takes d7. That's the novelty of the game. So we see bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and then we see bishop takes b7, which might look kind of strange at first, but like I was saying before about the weaknesses, you do have a dark square weakness with this king. So you actually are able to just grab a pawn here. Knight takes back on b7, and we see queen to b2 at check. And then we are picking up this knight after king to g8, queen takes b7. So we just won a true pawn. So even though we didn't go into the situation we went into before, you know, we still gave up the dark square bishop. So it did cause some problems for black there. And so now we're just playing down the pawn. So the bishop comes to h3. You know, we're trying to discover, you know, like a little attack here, possibly clear the way for some rooks to come over, stuff like that. So the rook comes to d1. We have bishop to e6. We have queen to e4. You know, we got to get this pawn secure. I think it was also probably possible just to like go, you know, to d3. You know, it would have been something that would have held it together. You do want to be careful in this position, though. Well, I mean, there's just some positions in the future, you know, putting your pawns on light squares, because when you do have your pawns on light squares, this bishop can actually attack it. So the best thing for white to do would be to try to do what, you know, is kind of going on here, you know, putting your pawns on dark squares. So it's probably better that, you know, white went ahead and just did that and then moved back queen to e4. So we have we have rook to b8. We got knight to c3. We got queen to d4. This isn't really a beneficial trade by black because you are down material. So, you know, you guys want to be careful. You know, when you're playing against somebody and you are down material, even if it's just a pawn, you want to probably stay away from trades because it usually benefits the side with more material, you know, logically, right? You are kind of getting a little bit of compensation in a form of like you're going to damage, you know, white's structure a little bit. So after queen takes d4, pawn takes d4, you have, you know, d5, knight to d5. Bishop takes d5, pawn takes d5. You've corrected your pawn structure because if you look back on it, you did have this isolated pawn. So that was kind of like a, you know, a legitimate idea. You know, you've caused white to kind of damage their structure a little bit. Now they are up a pawn, like I said. So, you know, even though you cause them to damage the structure, it's not that bad. So we see e4. This is a really thematic move here, d3, because you're kind of hoping that, you know, white is going to take care and they're going to get triple pawns, which is something like you pretty much never want. Unless you're lucky like Timur Gureyev in the U.S. Championships against Sam Sevion. That was a crazy game. Anyway, so we saw e4. We saw f5. You know, black is just constantly trying to chip away at white's, you know, nice pawn structure. Or nicer pawn structure, I guess I'll say. So we see f3 by white. Pawn takes e4, pawn takes e4, and then we have rook to b4. So we got rook to e1. You know, we're just basically as white, you know, we are up material, but we're having to do a little bit of defending here. So the rook comes to b2, and you have a decision to make. Are you going to give up this pawn or this pawn? Because, you know, you can't hold both of them. Because at some point, you know, you're going to be getting, you know, broken down here, and these rooks are going to be coming into play. Wesley just decides to go ahead and just abandon that a pawn. This is the more important pawn right here, because if you give up this pawn, this passed pawn becomes like much stronger. So you want to make sure that you're giving up, you know, the correct pawn. So rook takes a2. We got rook to e3, rook to a3. We got rook to c1. We got g5. We got g4. Trying to make sure that we stop like forward progress, like with a pawn push and stuff like that. So we got a5, rook to c7, get that pig on the 7th, of course. The rook comes to f7, we have e5. You know, we have some threats here of, you know, pushing up here, pushing up here. So it's getting a little bit dangerous for black. We have rook to a4, we got h3, which is going to become important later. This is definitely a move, a structure here that I want you to remember because it's going to become relevant here in a couple of moves. So the rook comes to d4. We have e6, knocking that rook away. So the rook comes back to f8. We have rook to e5. We have rook to d8. We have rook takes g5 with check. We have king to f8, rook to f5, king to g8, rook takes e7, and then we have rook 4 takes d5, and we have rook f to f7. And this is actually the position that Anish Giri does resign. And I'll show you exactly why he resigns. And like I said, keep this structure in mind here, right? Because this is like the key that's just kind of holding white structure together. So there really is only one move that you can legitimately make in this position. And the second best move, I'll tell you why that like literally completely fails. So the only move to make in the position is rook to g5. You have to prevent this check. You have 2 pigs on the 7th. You have this passed pawn right here. So you have to prevent this, and I will show you why you have to. Now after this, I mean, you're just starting to draw pawns. So this is even like not good anyway, because now you have 4 pawns versus 2. It's going to be really easy to push this, rook over here and collect this pawn. And the king is just so completely cut off that it can really just kind of just only go back and forth. So that's bad. So after rook f to f7, like I said, rook to g5 is the best move. If we make the second best move, which I mean is almost mating, we see rook to e5, and that is like really trying to hope to get some type of counterattack on this pawn and ease the pressure on black. But you see rook to g7 with check, king comes to h8, rook takes h7 with check, rook to king to g8. We got rook e to g7 with check, king to f8, and then we have e7. And as you guys can see, this is just really bad because now you're in Fork City. You don't want to be there. And it's just more direct if you do go this way, because then you're just going to be checkmated. So that's just like automatically mate. So yeah, that was that game. It was pretty interesting. It was it kind of just, once the pawn dropped on b7, it just kind of went downhill for Giri. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting how he missed that. I mean, I feel like that's something that you kind of would see. Yeah, I mean, you just have a weakness here, so I don't know. It just seems like a clear, just winning tactic. I don't know. Anyway, that is that game. So I appreciate everybody. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video and aking mga channel. Mabuhay ingat lagi to you guys. Anybody that's coming from the Netherlands, thank you. Thank you. And appreciate you guys coming by. I think I might have said that right. I'm gonna have some more work on Dutch, but throw a little bit more work in the mix. But I figured I'd go ahead and kind of switch things up, because I've been hearing some people kind of say I talk too much and stuff. So what I figured is I'll put some stuff on the back end. I'll try to cut my video down just a little bit. I'm always trying to make it short, but I do want to be informative and give good thorough analysis. So it's a good amount of time to go through. Yeah, for all my people that come, that this is their first time coming to my channel, Maligayang Pagdating sa aking channel. Welcome to my channel. Appreciate you guys stopping by and taking a look very much. For all my people in the Philippines, it's early morning, so you guys are getting up. Almusal tayo. I already ate my breakfast over here, so I'm good to go. But I appreciate everybody stopping by, coming through. Give me comments on any other videos you'd like to see, and I'll see you guys next time. All right.